Sawadee-ka! Hello, my name is Haley and I specialize in Thailand's elite and retirement visas to help people live in Thailand. Today we're going to take a look at traveling in Thailand. You might be wondering, do I need to be fully vaccinated or take a COVID test to travel? Where can I find out if there are any requirements or restrictions? And ultimately, is it worth it? In this video, we're going to answer these questions, so stick around and let's check it out. I am very happy because Thailand has slowly started eliminating COVID restrictions to travel and for everyday life. Knowing travel restrictions can be a bit complicated right now because it's always changing. If you're curious about the general lifestyle and everyday COVID restrictions for going into shopping malls, restaurants, bars, whatever, make sure you check out my other video right here. I review going into different shops so you can see exactly what you'll encounter when you're here in Thailand. So let's go over the questions and discuss restrictions that may impact you. Question number 1. Do I need to be fully vaccinated or take a COVID test to travel? For international travel, you do not need to be vaccinated and you no longer need to take a COVID test prior to your flight arriving in Thailand. However, when you do arrive in Thailand, you will need to take a COVID test in order to complete your quarantine. If you're vaccinated, you just need to stay in a Shaw Plus hotel for your first night in Thailand. And there are plenty of Shaw Plus hotels, so this is just like staying at a normal nice hotel for your first night staying in Thailand. And if you're non-vaccinated, you will need to stay in a hotel for 5 nights with an all-inclusive quarantine package, which includes the 5-night stay, airport transfer, food, and 2 RT-PCR COVID tests. After that, you're free to travel around Thailand. Whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, you will need to apply for a Thailand Pass, where you will upload your flight, your hotel booking, and your COVID insurance to verify that you meet Thailand's entry requirements. Now for domestic travel. The biggest thing to keep in mind is that each COVID restriction or requirement is specific to the province that you are traveling to. In general, things are becoming less strict here in Thailand, but it's a good idea to always check so you don't run into any surprises. Currently, the only provinces that require either a vaccination certificate or a medical certificate verifying a negative COVID test result are Phuket and Surat Thani, where the sandbox programs are running. If you're unvaccinated, it's easy to get a COVID test that will meet the travel requirement. You can go to either a public hospital or a private clinic, but I recommend you go to a private clinic because it's going to be a lot quicker and easier than if you were to go to a public hospital. And if you're vaccinated, all you'll do is show a photo on your phone or a printed copy of your vaccination status, showing 2 doses. At the moment, it's not required to have any boosters. Question number 2. Where can I find out if there are any requirements or restrictions? The best news source for international travel is tatnews.org. Tat News is the Tourism Authority of Thailand, and the Tourism Authority of Thailand will provide you with good, honest, factual information that's relevant to travelers. However, with domestic travel, it can be a bit more tricky. Ultimately, it depends on the province, but you still always want to check with the specific bus company or airline to check if they require either a vaccination certificate or a medical certificate verifying you tested negative. Like I said, traveling in Thailand is definitely easing up, but we're still kind of exiting this in-between phase, so it's a good idea to just check with your airline or whatever company you're traveling with to confirm that there is not a requirement. So let's see what it looks like to travel by each mode of transportation in Thailand. If you take a taxi or the metro, it's expected that you wear a mask because you're in a public area where a lot of people are transiting. If you take a plane, the first thing that you'll see when you walk into an airport is temperature check, the same as at any store. At the airport and during the flight, it is expected that all passengers wear masks. It's actually pretty nice traveling in these times because they usually space passengers out with a seat between to help with social distancing. Also, the airports are pretty empty, so things like checking your bags through security have been super easy and efficient. Now, another wonderful way to get around Thailand is by train. Traveling by train is one of the most common ways to travel up and down Thailand at a very low cost and a very scenic route. The train doesn't run as often and it's usually overnight, but the train is very affordable, fun, and a very beautiful experience overall, especially if you're traveling with a flamingo. When taking the train, the attitude towards vaccinations and COVID tests is totally relaxed. They'll take your temperature when you first enter any station, and after that, you're good to go. At the stations, it's respectful to others to wear your mask, but once the train's going, you can take it off while eating and enjoying the ride. And lastly, let's take a look at traveling by bus. Traveling by bus is one of the most common and most underrated ways to travel in Thailand. This is how most local Thais get around, and it's great because you can travel to more specific provinces that aren't as accessible by plane or train. It can be faster than the train, and it has even more stops to take you to more rural parts where the basic traveler has never heard of. Buses are generally really relaxed regarding vaccination status and COVID tests, and most do not check either of these, but it does depend on the individual bus company, so make sure you contact them to check. On the bus, you'll be a lot closer to others than you would be on the train. So you should wear a mask and be respectful of others, especially your elders. And a very important tip for the bus is that you should definitely bring warm clothes and warm socks because they blast the air conditioning and you could have a really unpleasant ride if you're not prepared. If you're taking a taxi or a Grab ride, always be prepared to wear your mask in someone else's vehicle. Remember that Thailand is a culture of respect, so always look out for others, especially your elders. Also, if you're taking a ferry or a water taxi, always be prepared with a mask. The same goes for any other public transportation in Bangkok or a big city like the BTS or SkyTrain. And now to answer the final question, is it worth it? The answer is a resounding yes. Right now is a very opportune, unique time to travel to Thailand because there are a lot less people, great discounts, and plenty of things to do. It's like going to Disneyland and the park is only open for you. Sure, some places are closed, but there are no longer ghost towns like when COVID first hit. Tourism in Thailand is back, but it's not overwhelming or intrusive. The only reason why it may not be worth it is if you only have 1 or 2 weeks of vacation time and you're not vaccinated. So that would mean you would spend 5 nights in a quarantine hotel and have little time outside of the quarantine hotel. However, if you are vaccinated or you're planning to stay in Thailand for a longer amount of time, 100%, 300%, yes, it is worth it. If you have any other questions I didn't review, you can post it in the comments, or you can book a consultation with me on my website, hhpremium.com. And if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you think it might help any friends, please feel free to share it with them. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Sawadee ka.